No response. Yes, thank you. That's the correct response. Hi, my name is Zach Reisinger. I'm the program director here at the South Street Seaport Museum. Is there anyone who's never been to the museum before? Yes, awesome. High fives right here. So welcome. You are on a piece of history. This is the tall ship Wavertree. It was built in 1885, and it's the last remaining fully rigged three-masted iron-hulled cargo ship in the world. So yes, you can clap for that. Yes, amazing. And this ship will actually be available for you to explore after the event for about a few minutes, like 10 minutes or so. Be sure you check out the cargo hold. So the whole length of this ship was what the whole point of the ship was to carry non-perishable goods to every continent except Antarctica. So it traveled by wind power, and you can also go up on the quarterdeck as well. The museum is really excited to host this event. We do a ton of programs, all sort of exploring the history of New York as a city and its relation to the sea. So this was a really great opportunity, right, the sea. But if you want to know more about programs, we have some information down there. We have a couple of really fun walking tours. One is called Sinister Secrets of the Seaport. It's a true crime tour that lives in the world of edutainment. You'll laugh. It starts at a bar. It's a lot of fun. There's also a women's history tour that's called Women Who Wowed. And then also coming up at the end of May, we're doing a trivia night here. If you were like, man, I want to come back on this ship at night. I want to have a drink and I want to learn something. Sign up for trivia on a tall ship. You'll be competing with the Guides Association of New York, and you could win tickets to sail on either one of our tugboats, or behind me, this bobbing here, is an 1885 schooner that goes out onto the water starting at the end of May, and you can book your tickets on our website. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Kate from McNally, I believe. Kate, yes, Kate, who's going to introduce the program. If you have any questions, ask anyone wearing a Seaport shirt. Thank you all so much. Welcome to the museum.
Thank you, Zach. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate, and I'm the director of events at McNally Jackson Books. We are so honored to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of Samantha Hunt's The Seas, featuring Sam in conversation with Alexandra Auder and Karah Preiss in this iconic and fitting space. We are so grateful to Zach and the South Street Seaport team for hosting us. The Seas is a longtime favorite of McNally Jackson booksellers. One person called it an exceptionally weird, visceral novel in their staff pick, a book that will sink you and spit you out onto land, dazed and dripping, a fairy tale for freaks. Every time this bookseller recommended The Seas, it haunted them, they wrote. They kept recommending it. In fact, hauntings recur in Sam's work. Over the years, her research has taken her to Lilydale, the spiritualist community upstate, to her late father's unpublished manuscript, to a medium who asked Charlotte Bronte to blur her novel. One character speaks. A few years ago, Sam unearthed a story about two girls on a road trip. One character speaks the entire time while the other remains silent. Of course, it turns out that the girl in the back seat is dead, Sam said, referring to the twist in one of her novels. I won't tell you which one. I couldn't believe I've been writing the same story for 25 years. Sam is the author of 4 books of fiction, including The Seas and The Dark Dark. She's also the author of The Unwritten Books, a collection of essays about death and literature. Hunt is the recipient of the Guggenheim Fellowship, and her works were translated into 13 languages. Alexandra Auder is a writer and actor. Her memoir, Don't Call Me Home, about growing up in the Chelsea Hotel with a crazy mom, was a finalist for the Thurber Prize for American Humor. She leads an online weekly writing group through Substack. Karah Preiss is the creative producer living in New York City. She co-founded Bellatrix Book Club with the actress Emma Roberts, along with Bellatrix Productions, a TV and film production company. Please join me in welcoming them. Welcome to the Office Walk.
Thank you, Kate. Is that too loud or too right in my mouth? There. Okay. Yeah, good. All right. Thank you so much, Kate, for this. And thank you guys. This is so strange. This is wild, man. It's wonderful. I mean, this is just like, I don't even understand where we are, but I'm loving it. I'm going to read a tiny bit from the C's to start, and then we're going to have a little quick conversation, and then hopefully we can all talk. But I want to say thank you to you all for being here, and thanks so much to Kate Dwyer for organizing this. I mean, she's just been like hitting it out of the park lately for McNally Jackson with these incredible events. And so come back for more of what she is bringing New York City. I want to say a thank you to PJ Mark, who has like been with this book from the very, very get-go, when we were little baby children. And I think that's it. I'm going to give you a little bit, sorry, I have to figure out how to do this. I'll hold the mic for you. I got it. Thank you though. All right, the seas. It was a dark and stormy night, and the ship was on the sea. The captain said, "Sailor, tell us a story." And the sailor began. It was a dark and stormy night, and the ship was on the sea. Okay, so that's funny because I actually wear glasses and I couldn't read that, but I've read this book so many times now in the past 20 years that I was like, oh shoot, put your glasses on, girl. The map, a prologue. The highway only goes south from here. That's how far north we live. There aren't many roads out of town, which explains why so few people ever leave. Things that are unfamiliar are a long way off, and there is no direct route to these things. Rather, it's a street, to a road, to a causeway, to a road across a bridge, to a road, to another road before you reach the highway. If you were trying to leave, people who have known you since the day you were born would recognize your car and see you leaving. They would wonder where you were going, and they would wave with 2 fingers off the steering wheel, a wave that might seem like a stop sign or a warning to someone trying to forget this very small town. It would be much easier to stay. The town is built on a steep and rocky coast so that the weathered houses are stacked like shingles or like the rows of razor wire in a prison, one on top of the other up the hill. Small paths and narrow roads wind their ways between the houses so that there's no privacy in this town. If you were to stumble home drunk one night, by morning the entire town would know. Not that they would care. People here are accustomed to drunks. We have the highest rate of alcoholism in the country, and this fact is repeated so often I thought we should put it at the Chamber of Commerce sign, at the town line that welcomes tourists. More alcoholics per capita. Enjoy your visit. Most of the waterfront is cluttered with moorings, piers that smell of motor oil and outbuildings for the fishermen. Though there is a short stretch of sandy beach and a boardwalk, where every summer a few fool tourists fail to enjoy themselves and spend their vacations wondering why anyone would live here. If they asked me, I'd tell them, we live here because we hate the rest of you. Though that isn't always true, it is sometimes. Then there's the ocean, mean and beautiful. Unabridged. I'm not from here, am I ask my mother while she tightens the strap of her bathrobe. I don't want to be from here because most of the people in this town think of me as a mold or a dangerous fungus that might infect their basements. I am the town's bad seed. I am their rotten heart. My mother opens her robe a crack so I can see the loose elastic of her pink underwear and her belly button. It's popped and spread as a manhole. Look at that, she says, and points to her stretched stomach as evidence. That's where you came from 19 years ago. Dad said that I came from the water. Well, that certainly would be unusual. My mother is regularly torn between being herself and being my mother. Her internal argument is sometimes visible from the outside, as if she had two heads sprouting from her one neck. The heads bicker like sisters. One says, be sensible for your daughter's sake. 3 meals a day, brush your teeth at night, organize, comet, pledge, joy. While the other head says nothing, the other head is reading a book about whether life exists outside our solar system. She glances across the kitchen to my grandfather for his reaction. He doesn't make one. I've grown to count on his abiding distraction. Having my grandfather in the house is like having a secret tunnel open to a distant past where he lives. My grandfather stirs the sugar in the sugar bowl, staring at the kitchen door where the neighbor's cat plucks the screen with her claw. The man who owns the cat is a strange man. The cat often comes over to our house for a bowl of water, as the man only serves the cat orange juice, or ginger ale, or milk. The man is afraid of water. He doesn't drink it, and he washes minimally. The man was once a sailor who survived a very bad storm. He says he saw the water do things that night that he doesn't bother to repeat anymore, because no one would believe him. But it must have been bad, because he hasn't gone out on the sea for years. And still, he can start to tremble with fear if my mother turns on her garden hose to water the impatience. The cat plucks the screen. Dad said I'm a mermaid, I tell them. But mermaids don't have legs, or a voice, or a soul unless they marry a mortal, my mother says. My mother listens to my voice. My mother looks at my legs. You don't even have a husband. Mom. I'm annoyed because she's pointing out many of the very same things I've already heard, and they rub a raw spot. I see. She rocks her back against the kitchen counter. But I don't see so well, and I think my trouble seeing might be a characteristic of the depth of the sea where I'm from. It's a region so dark blue that the creatures from that depth have no pigment, and neither do their eyes, like me. I look away from the door. I look away from them. There's some creatures down there who don't have any eyes at all. My grandfather stops stirring the sugar. I've got a word for that place. He wheels his office chair over to the windowsill where he keeps one of his many dictionaries. He throws the book open on the table. It makes a good thud. He leaps through the pages very quickly. I can almost remember the word. It starts with had or ha. I read it in the Scientific American a few years ago, and I looked it up at the time. He tears through the dictionary, searching for the word that means noun, a region of the deep sea so dark that the creatures who dwell there have little or no pigment. It was here, he says. Someone took it, he says. And he looks at my mother and me with suspicion, mostly me. I try not to meet his gaze, but he's a tough old man, my father's father, and he can stare at me for a long time. Eventually, I have to look away. I walk over to the screen door and let the kitty cat inside. I was thirsty. That word was just floating there, and anyway, that word is mine. All right, I'm just gonna end that there. That was if you guys could like pay attention to that, you're amazing listeners. I was like, I couldn't even pay attention. There's a lot of beautiful things to see from here.
There's a lot of grooving going on. How's everybody doing? Is it very loud when I talk, or is it's normal, right? It sounds louder up here. like rock and roll, I guess. I don't know. It's good to see everybody. My name is Karah Preiss, as Kate said, and I run a book club called Bellatrix. This is Alex. This is I'm gonna stay over here, and I'm just gonna be moderating tonight, so you guys can chat and have a good time. But I wanted to start with a question for both of you, because clearly, based on your earmarks, this is a book that you're a fan of too. Well, for you, I want to ask you first. This is the 20th anniversary of this book.
Somehow.
One, what has it been like to read it again? And two, where did it start when you started writing it well, I'm assuming it was a few more years than 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And then for you, do you remember the first time you read it and sort of how it made you feel as a reader?
Okay. Thank you. To read it now is very, very strange. It's wonderful, but I actually had to read it again before this night because I was a little like, what's it? And Tin House just did it again in 2017, so I definitely read it then, but I still was like, I can't quite remember. And I said to my family one night, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody published this book. It's so weird. And the thing that I noticed most about it now too is like, I used to always think that this book was about unrequited desire. Like, you know, I don't want to have any spoilers, but if you haven't read it, there's like a dude that this gal is crazy about. And I always thought it was about that. And now reading it with all these years and all this wisdom, I definitely see that it's more about her learning how she can love herself and learning how she can find an identity that is in many ways able to kind of be part of the world that she loves. It's like totally, for me reading it now, I'm like, oh, it's clearly about her merging with the world and taking language and being like, yeah, I'm language, yeah, I'm science, yeah, I'm everything. I mean, I'm also desire, but yet there's everything in there. And so it seemed so clear to me on this reading, and I was like, that's good, because it's a sad book if you're not reading it that way, you know. Okay, and then where did it start? It started somewhere that is not necessarily evident at all anymore. And it started that I was just like looking at my wrist, and I was like, oh, that's so weird. And I kind of have icky things about the circulatory system. I'm like, ooh, I'm better about it now. Now I'm a mom, I can like deal with it. But I used to be really freaked out by the circulatory system, as much as I like having a body. And I was like, why is it blue? Why are all these blue states places that are oxygen free, like the sky, like the sea? And I was like, that's like, you know, it's weird that blue is suffocation. It's weird that blue is so isolated. And so I started it, writing it. And those of you guys who are writing right now, this is good. Take a note. I wrote it like in the early morning hours before my 2 day jobs that I had. And I would just write tiny little pieces. And it felt like little bricks. And I was writing each one about the color blue. I was like, I'm just gonna write about the color blue. And so I kind of assembled these little blue bits about not having identity, not having oxygen. I was like living in a tiny little town, and so identity seemed, it's actually a city, but it's not New York. Yeah, exactly. And so it started all about the color blue, and then, you know, went from there. But I don't even know that that's evident in there anymore. Long answer, sorry.
No, that's really cool and amazing to know. I would, you know, like just, I love hearing how the work is born. How's that sound? Yeah. I also love, well, now you can't say your name, like Alice Monroe. Alice Monroe. I would always say, I just heard her say once that she wrote in a couple, like 2 hours a day before the kids went to school. I can't manage that, but yeah, so that's really beautiful about Blue. And when you say that, I feel like now that I know it, I can imagine that, but I wouldn't have thought that. But you do have the beautiful blue sections. So I came to this book later in life. Samantha sent it to me because you can write to any author that you love on Instagram, just so you know. Like, we might think they're untouchable and famous, but anybody, pick anyone and write to them, you'll get an answer back in about 30 seconds. So sometimes when I love someone, it's like, I love your book, and then they write back. So I don't even remember what the story was. Now I've read so many, but I was late to the party, Samantha Hunt party. And yeah, so she sent me the book, and yeah, I felt the same way. I was like, wow, they publish stuff like this? Like, they tell me you have to have resolution and a plot line, and I mean, this actually has a big plot line. But yeah, I was totally swept in, thought the voice was nothing I'd ever read before, but that's how I felt when I read like the first short story that I read. It was where it just arrests you, the voice. And yeah, so I also related to, that easy first reading, which is that desire of a young girl, which I have written about and thought about, that really intense, like, sexual, beyond sensual, like, desire. And for me, it was always with older guys. And so I related to that, and I also related to it as a mother, so I could both relate to it in the young girl and the mother. Yeah, I mean, much more to talk about, but all right, good.
No, I was going to say, first of all, it's very interesting. I don't know if it's because you now mentioned blue, but that the McNally Jackson sweatshirts are blue. There's a weird synchronicity going on. I chose to wear blue. I'm not really sure. It's a weird. I didn't even think you have blue too. I mean, I guess it's obvious in the book, but it was just subliminal for whatever reason. I want to talk a little bit about vision in the novel, because I guess my question for you as the writer, and I guess for you as also a writer, is like, and not to be too heady about it, but like, is what the narrator sees true to you, as someone whose vision is deteriorating a little bit, and someone who's also raised by people who have another sense that's compromised. Like, I think a lot of people could read this book and say that there's something unreliable about the narrator, which is something we've become used to now. But is what she sees true to you?
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it very much, like, I think what she sees is very true, but I also think that, of course, she sees more than one truth, as we all do, right? And that there's a deep understanding in this narrator of, if I can imagine it, then it's real. That, like, that's how ideas start, right? And so I do think that what she sees is true, and I also think that it's through her deteriorating vision, her sensitivity to light, that she's able to see in an expanded way, and able to be like, well, it's true that I'm a mermaid, but it's also true that I'm like a messed up teenage girl in a northern town, and why are those two things not both obviously true? That's how she feels, right? And so, yeah, I definitely think that what she sees is true. I mean, and it's funny because later on, I was thinking about this in the unwritten book about vision, and even just like I think it's in the Seas too. That was one funny thing in returning to it, is like, oh my God, the same obsessions. As Kate was saying earlier, I'm like, oh boy, I'm still obsessed with the exact same things that I was obsessed with when I was 18 years old. But that idea that vision is, that our rods and cones are actually really, really faulty, and they don't see that much, and that all of our vision is imagination. It's our brain filling it all in. And I was like, okay, so vision is a fiction. And I thought, oh, all right, that makes a lot of sense to how I feel about reality.
Yeah, I feel like the vision comes up in the perception of others. So the narrator is perceived one way and her relationship with Jude, but then her somatic perception is this wholly other thing. And I think in the drinking of the bathwater, like I believe her that she wasn't trying to commit suicide. And that felt very like reliable narrator information. And that was such a beautiful description of both the adolescent, teenage, young woman suicidal ideation, like switching to this kind of actually beautiful thing. And I relate so much. I love water as well.
Well, that idea of like drinking the water, but also drinking the alcohol, like the book is riddled with all those alcoholics that there are on the town side. But that idea of like liquid as the thing that can change border and boundary, right? That water can enter our bodies, that it's like totally, it's a thing that we don't have a boundary for. And so I was trying in this book to make everything in that sort of liquid state. I was trying to make like other bodies have that permeability. I was trying to make language certainly have that permeability, so she could like take a word and eat it, that was in her grandfather's dictionary, and she's like, well, that's mine, I was thirsty, I needed it. And so, yeah, that idea, I think, of all the liquid comes out of that. I wanted her to be as permeable as I feel all the time, I was like, that's reality. Like, I am affected by all of it, as everybody,
Yeah, no, I think that all that, the way you wove those very kind of meta, esoteric themes into the kind of plot-oriented potential of everything was amazing. And then I know I'm kind of jumping to the end, but the word waves, that was really, how did that come to you? Was it just one of those things where you were writing and it started happening?
I didn't know how to end. I didn't know how to end the book because I was really frustrated with the idea that things had to have resolution. I was like, clearly this is a book without resolution. I can't do it. And so I was like, how do I end it so that you're satisfied? I hope you're satisfied, but without resolution. And I was like, those waves were like giving the possibility that she can define herself however she wants to define herself. I feel like I should start singing the Celine Dion song from Titanic. You guys would probably enjoy that a little more.
I'm actually slightly nauseated.
This is amazing up here. Afterwards, you all have to come and stand up here because it's incredible. And somebody will recreate the Titanic, I hope. Maybe all of you.
So, you tell me if you want to hear, but I'm also interested in basically the father, the conflation of Jude and the father, and death, sex and death, and the obvious things, but I want to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's like an issue of her boundary and her vision problem, right? That she's just like, it's my dad, it's Jude. She's 19 years old, she's like forming ideas about others, and then this crazy idea of identity. And so it's like, here's the man that she's been given. A lot of what I was thinking about this time reading it through was like, the myth of the mermaid obviously permeates this whole thing, and like how messed up that myth was. And that was a starting place, of course. I was like, oh my God, wait, why do we have like Disney's Little Mermaid when this is so messed up? I'm like, you have to kill the guy if he doesn't fall in love with you? Like, I was like, are you serious? This can't be like the thing that we all have like hanging in our bathroom in our houses in Florida, like why do we have mermaids everywhere? It's like this really very cruel myth. Also like sexy as anything but no genitals. I was like, that's messed up, I was like, what? This is so messed up. And so I was thinking about the myth of the mermaid, obviously, and like wanting to explore that and wanting to rewrite it. But when I was reading it through this time, I was like, the other thing that really populates this is the idea of the myth of man. I was like, okay, so we have Jude the soldier, and that's really the only option open to him. He's like not a really good fisherman, so he's got to go fight in a war. And to me, this reading through, I was like, oh, that idea about like the mythology of what it means to be a man felt even more present than I had ever considered it. And so, I mean, we have the father who maybe is also a myrrh person, maybe is also just a drunk who is dead now. And like the limited options that he experienced as a man, and then that's kind of replicated again in Jude, and thinking about that.
I mean, one of the things about what I think people love about this book, even though now you've seen it as something that is completely about her finding her own language, I think is the unrequited love of Jude. And I don't really know if I have a question about Jude other than, I don't know, is there real love between them?
I mean, and I shouldn't say this book definitely came out of me being young and being in a situation where I was completely in love with a drug addict, and I was like, there you go. I was like, There's that one scene, I think about it all the time. I still think about this like 20 years later when she's like, head, brick. It's actually one of the cops, but it's totally her. She's like, head, brick, head, brick, head, brick, head, brick, head, brick, head, brick. And I was like, that's the experience of being in love with a drug addict. And so it was definitely, I mean, when I was writing it, it was about desire and like the kind of delicious pain of being that young and being like, love me, but not having that happen, and how that like putting yourself into that situation of desire, or especially like unrequited desire, is like a way to find what the shape of your body is. You're like, right? Anne Carson writes about this so beautifully in Eros the Bittersweet. It's like the experience of desire is like when you notice what you don't have inside of you, and it's not that you like, if you get what you want, then you're like, yeah, that's not so good anymore, you know? And you're like, I want to feel the hole, I want to feel the lack. That's what is kind of wonderful and fun for this narrator. She's like, to not have what I want helps me to think about who I am.
And her misery is in a way her having a little bit of fun.
Totally. Yeah, she's like plumbing the depths of how much it can hurt, right? She's like a brave explorer of how much it can hurt to not get what you want.
Which is, I guess, the experience of being a teenager. Or a late-stage teenager.
Yeah.
She's a young adult.
Yeah, it's funny, because now, like, she's 19 in the book, but that was just me being not brave enough to make her 15, which is probably what she really is.
Yeah, I relate to her more of that age as well. And I have to remind myself.
Oh no, my 15-year-old daughters are here and they're hovering their ears right now.
Cover your ears. Yeah, I think that's what you also said in the beginning, that you put so beautifully what you just said, referring to the beginning, the missing, and there's also the chapter waiting, which is towards the end, or wait. And I think that really encapsulates it in a weird way. I feel like I never achieved that kind of like imagined passion since those early years, because I've always said it's like after the first kiss I'm done, you know. I have been married for 30 years, but I'm like, ooh, that feeling. And then it's so the language Samantha used to describe her yearning is so cool. The birthing Jude, you know, you get into this strange. Yeah, and I realized, even just as I looked down and wrote the father, the seahorse, and Jude, don't seahorses men give birth? You obviously knew that.
Yeah.
You're smart. Yeah, and then Jude inside her, I think you wrote, feels like love, or she says in Jude inside me feels like love.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like after the moment that maybe she actually killed him, maybe, right? And when everybody who's like hasn't read the book, they're like, you are spoiling it. Trust me, this is not a spoiler. Like she basically has killed him maybe on the first page. You don't know.
Yeah, and I also realized saying this, you do mention God at least once.
But I'm seeing there's also this Jesus thing, because she's drinking Jude's blood. As water, yeah. But and it's the only time I've ever I realized something maybe about Jesus that I liked.
I definitely grew up with Jesus, and so I love how that myth infuses it too, and like thinking about the beauty of.
You never say Jesus. She never mentions Jesus.
No, but my grandmother was in love with Jesus, like in a way where she was like, that's my boyfriend. Like, she had like really sexy pictures of him all over her house. And I remember looking at him, and it was like after she was widowed too, and she'd be like, really like googly-eyed over Jesus. And I was like, that's a great way to have a God. That's a wonderful experience.
That's true. I always, when I was forced to go to church as a kid with my grandparents, I always wanted to yell, "Fuck Jesus, cock!" like a Tourettic thing. So I have felt sexual towards Jesus, but more violent sexuality. Possible to not feel some sort of, sexual reaction to Jesus because he's always taken in these compromising positions.
I go to this monastery to write a lot, and in the chapel, I always they have services 5 times a day, and I always am like, I'll do anything to not write, so I go to church. And they're 20-minute services, you can get a quickie, But they have this crucifix there, and I always am looking at it, and it's literally vaginas in Jesus' side, and I'm like, that is so weird.
Very true. Yeah, he does have some crevices inside of him for sure. Your kids are like, can I get off this fucking boat? I just have one question. Actually, it's time for questions from the audience, which I think will be really fun to figure the fuck out. You talk about it's very funny because so much of this book is not set in time, but you talk about the Iraq War. And I think that, I don't think about the Iraq War as much as I can. And I was wondering sort of why your choice to set that particular piece of reality in the novel, where that came from, other than it was probably around the time you were
It was definitely around the time, but it was also, there's nobody in the book who is like, oh, that's based on this one, that's based on this one. But Jude was an amalgamation of people who I knew, and a friend of mine had gone to Iraq as part of the Navy. He was actually on a boat. And when he came home, he had all these cuts on his body. And he was living with me and my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, what's up? What happened? And he would not ever talk about it. And I was like, if you could just talk about it, then I wouldn't have to imagine it for the next 40 years what you did, But he would never talk about it. And so I held on to that. I thought about it forever and forever, what those cuts were about. And so that friend of mine very much situated it. And it was more recent, of course, at that time. And also for folks my age, it was so weird to go to war. Now it's like, hey, in America we get to go to war all the time. But at that time it seemed really weird.
Did you ever read the book?
I think he did. Oh, that's a good. It's so long ago now, I don't remember. And he actually, when he came home, he burned his Social Security card and moved to Mexico because I hadn't seen him. Yeah.
I think our age does really think about, we're a very different generation, and I really appreciated that was the reference, because it still makes me so angry. Yeah, we were really mad. We were very mad, and we were just like George Bush is a bozo. Now he's somehow an American hero. I don't know, but it's very strange. But also in terms of talking about masculinity, like you do with the father and Jude, the kind of violence that's inflicted on you has a hierarchy when you come home. It's how bad was it, and how bad, based on how bad it was, how are you reacting, which I think was interesting in terms of the character.
And because of that too, and even thinking about Jude on a ship and like absorbing, there's one scene where he's like absorbing all of the voices and he's absorbing the violence of the ocean against, and I love thinking about, again, that border of the boundary, and like he had to cut those gills to kind of be able to breathe, or to let that rage out, or let out everything that he had let pierce his skin.
That's very classic Sam Hunt. When I read that and then I was rereading the book, I was like, she's a genius, man. I need to let out some shit through some gills.
No.
But I
Just sing karaoke if you need to let it out.
This is the closest I've gotten to great karaoke in a long time, actually. This is an insane way to do karaoke.
Karah's gonna do Titanic.
I can do Titanic. It got lower. So I just wanted to open it up to people who might have questions, and thank you both for sitting and talking about the seas.
Thank you.
Thank you for sitting
Thank you, Karah. My God, thank you. If anyone,
So yeah, we'll take some. I'm sorry, I don't have any questions.
if you have a question, Zach has a mic there, or you can just holler it.
It might work. It's working now. Great.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna with so many friends tonight, which is why I love this event. My friend there. Thank you so much for being here. I love the seas. And I love getting to ask authors what they're reading, what they're excited about this year. What should I be reading? Books.
I have been, oh God, whenever I suddenly ask you that and then your brain goes blank, you're like, I don't know how to read. What have I read recently that I've loved? I'm reading The Vegetarian, but that's not new, but it's great. I love it. My book club is doing that right now. Oh my God, I literally read like 10 books a week and my brain has gone blank. It'll come to me. I'm gonna tell you later on. And you know what I'm doing right now? I'm picturing my bedside and I'm like, show me one of the covers. I'm sorry that I'm blanking in such an embarrassing way.
Something with the blue cover.
Yeah.
But I love The Vegetarian. I just read it for the first time. Yeah, really weird. That's very Hunt adjacent. Yeah, so I am been with these French ladies, Virginie Despentes. Vernon Subutex series. Yeah, real page turners actually. And then another page turner is very short. You can read each one in one day. Do you know Constance Debray? Ooh, lucky you. So there's 3 of them. The first one is Playboy, Love Me Tender, and the one that just was translated as Gnome or Name. Do they know these books?
My daughter's just texted me what I just read.
Oh, good, perfect. Good girls, good. Yeah, so highly recommend lesbian fucking galore, nihilism, and junky aristocratic parents. Sounds like my childhood.
Okay, now I remember 2 amazing books that I just read. One that my daughter sent me. Thank you, Marie. I teach at Pratt in Brooklyn, and yesterday we had Tracy Rosenthal come, and she just wrote an incredible book called Abolish Rent. And those of you who pay rent in New York City should read her book. It's incredible. And I also just read Allie Smith's new book, and Allie Smith to me is like the high priestess of everything.
What's that called?
Beautiful. It's called Glyph. This is Gliff. Next year she's publishing Glyph. And I love her.
I don't know her.
Oh, she's good. Scottish. Sorry.
I don't know that this is working, but I'm curious about the mother who's, is very absent in the way that she's reading the father. But she's also, has a really strong presence, and she is, a mother figure in her life. Like, I'm just curious, she kind of loses herself in her husband, but is also, a real strong individual, and you get a real sense of character from her.
One of my most favorite scenes with the mother, and I think I love it because it like just describes what you're talking about is she's sitting up on the roof, and the narrator comes up to the roof to join her, and she realizes, and her mom's saying, you have to move to New York City, you got to get out of here, don't stay sunk in this small town, don't be in love with Jude anymore. And then her mom immediately like looks out and sees some garbage floating in the ocean, and she thinks it's her husband who's been disappeared for forever. And it's like the mom, everything that she's trying to present to her daughters is not true because she doesn't want her daughter to end up like her. And so I think that her absence is more like she's scared that she's going to infect her daughter to become like her. And it's funny because I wrote this book before I was a mom, and now I'm a mom in a huge way. I have many daughters. And I'm actually, I'm impressed that I knew what that would be like. Like, you do try to kind of fool your daughters into not turning out or making the mistakes that you made. Not that I don't, you know, they can turn out however they want, but yeah, you try to like cope your. And so I think that her distance is more that she doesn't want to believe that her daughter's a mermaid because she thinks, oh, then you're going to kill somebody, or you know, then you're going to disappear in the ocean. And so, but there's a part of her that definitely is like, my daughter's a mermaid.
Okay, I'm trying. Okay, I'm failing. Okay, so one of my favorite parts of the book is the parts where the text is mirrored or redacted, and it seems like such a simple thing, but it's like one of the best parts of reading it because it's so interesting. And like in my book club, people were talking about going up against a mirror, like trying to read it, and I was just curious, like when that happened in the writing, and like what your feelings towards it are now.
Thank you. So the question was about the redacted text and the backwards text that's in the book. The job that I had while I was writing the C's was I was a graphic designer and for alternative news weeklies, including The Village Voice. The paper that I worked at before The Voice in the small town, we actually like still sometimes did things in a very old-fashioned way, and it wasn't that we were setting lead type, but I was thinking about that a lot, and I studied printmaking in college a little bit, and so I was thinking about like that process of setting plates and like making language literally physical. And I mean, not so much to a level of like concrete poetry where you're doing something like that, but I love thinking about the physicality of language because it's like, yeah, it hurts you. It definitely hurts you, right? And so if we can think about it as something solid. So I love playing with that theme of that he's, you know, a typesetter, that he's like setting these dictionaries that nobody's ever going to print, and he's got to set them backwards, and they're really physical. I mean, she goes upstairs to the attic for that drawer of letters, and she gets bruised by all the letters, right? Which I was like, oh my god, that would be a cool tattoo. Although I don't have any, but and my daughter shouldn't get it. No, just kidding.
They probably have like 3 stick and pokes that they haven't showed you. I know where your stick and pokes are, girls. Inner left hip and upper inner right thigh. It's a little heart.
So I was just trying to play with the physicality of language. Yeah, just shout it out.
Oh, okay. I teach this to high school students. It's amazing. And one of the things that one of my students is writing about for an essay is the like connection between silence and sound, but then also to the layout of like the weighting, and how just the end of the book is also very physically and visually, obviously, impactful to the meaning. And I'm just wondering if you have any advice for that.
Honestly, like that idea, I really just wanted to have that time pass. And also just thank you so much for being a teacher and for teaching this book. My God, thank you. What high school Alex says?
Oh, I'm at an international boarding school in Westchester. Yeah.
But so I was, I really wanted people to feel that passage of time and how bored she was, you know, and I didn't know any other way to do it. And I also, I think because this was my first book and I was quite young, that I was like, well, you know, I can do that. I mean, there was a lot of things that I maybe wouldn't attempt now, which is weird. I think I would, but I think I would attempt them. My editor's here. She's like, you definitely try that shit all the time, Samantha. I didn't know how else to do that, to make a reader almost feel her boredom. There's Teresa Hawk Young Child's book, Dictate. She has this amazing, oh my God, right? I know, that book was fundamental to my becoming a writer. But she has this one book, she does these one section where it's Jesus and Joan of Arc speaking. Jesus, he talks a lot. Joan is pretty silent, but whenever Joan talks, Jesus is silent. It's like the pages side by side. So he'll talk. Joan will say one little thing over here. And I always think about that, and I always think about Joan of Arc's silence while Jesus is speaking, and it's so impactful, it's so wonderful, that white space. There's one thing about the white space too, in the seas too, where it's almost like a space of breathing for her, possibility, right? Where she's like, nobody's put any words on me, nobody's called me slut, nobody's called me whore. I can be in this white space, and it feels like breath for her, you know? So I think that's what's happening in all that air there. Thank you again so much. Thank you for teaching it. That means so much to me. I appreciate that. Tell your students thanks.
And also when she's counting the drips of water, I love that. And I think that ends up on the top page, and there's a lot of space after.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah.
I think, do we have time for one more if anybody wants to, but otherwise, you know, I don't know if you're going to sign books or not.
I'm happy to sign.
Yes, she is. I'm looking at Kate. She is.
Titanic, and I was like, yeah.
Oh, I could have ended in Sing Titanic or sign books. Anybody else, or we can, you know, wrap this portion. Oh yeah, there we go. One more.
Wow.
That's the sweet spot.
Okay. Just because you talked about how like the genre of this book is so different and even weird, you say, so I'm just curious about like when you were like querying it or publishing it, like any editing, like did you get like one rejection or what was that process like? I'm just like, what did you
I can tell you about the rejection. Yeah, PJ is here. He could tell you about the rejection too. It took a long time, right? I can't even remember, but like every mainstream press said no. And he found a small press in California. It doesn't exist anymore. It was called McNally Cage. It was a pretty magic place, a wild place. Like, I showed up at 10 o'clock in the morning for the first time that I was going for my meeting, and my editor was like, let's go down to the bar, honey. I was like, okay. It was a different time. But they took a chance on it, and it was an incredible experience through them. I will also say though, it went out of print for a long time because that press folded and things got lost, and Tin House did this wonderful thing of like, let's bring that back. They made this beautiful edition, they made this gorgeous cover, and did this wonderful thing. And so, it was forever that it got rejected. McSweeney's took like an 80-page excerpt, and that was kind of the thing that helped it. But it was years and years, so don't give up. Don't give up.
And shout out to Tin House, because that's how I think a lot of people found the book the second time. That's how we found it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, well, thank you all so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all. Just we can ask you to, when you do leave, you don't have to leave now, but just exit out the aft gangway here. And you're welcome to explore the ship down below the cargo hold, the captain's saloon, and the quarterdeck behind me.
Everything sounds fake that you just said.
It's true, right?
An aft gangway. Oh, I'm sorry. Aft gangway would be my drag name.
Gangway. And also, be sure to tag McNally Jackson and Seaport Museum in all of your photos.
And
all the
Sam
social
Hunt
media.
and Alex Auder.
And Sam, all of us. Follow us all on all the channels. Great.
Thank you guys. Thanks for braving this whole night.